Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Inez Robinson-Odom, and we're going to be talking about leadership and residence. Um,
Exactly.
and we're going to cover that in the next 20 minutes. Inez, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about this. So where can people find you?
People can find me at inezodom.com. What I love is Inez, four letters, Odom, four letters, inezodom.com. Very simple. And that's where you can find me.
Okay, and you're also on LinkedIn, are you?
I'm also on LinkedIn and on Instagram. They can visit me at Miss Inez's School of Home Training, which is a
Ooh,
card game I created that's a lot of fun to spark conversation. So lots of ways to reach me.
fantastic. So, leadership in residence.
Yes,
What
yes.
is it?
What is leadership in residence?
Yeah.
Well, very simply, leadership in residence is a time bound embedded leadership partnership. So essentially, I join an organization instead of advising from the outside, I actually get embedded in an organization for typically a period of about 3 months. And the idea is that I'm whatever it is that's keeping the senior leadership team up at night or the head of school or the CEO, I'm there to really be a thought partner, shoulder to shoulder, and also literally coming in and day out so that as things are happening, I'm able to really be there as sort of part coach, part strategist, and really almost a trusted witness to the process. And so, what I've found over the years of my experience managing and um, doing various types of leadership, there's really nothing new under the sun. So sometimes you just need someone that can kind of help you analyze and work it through. So that's it. It's bringing
And
me
you've
in.
done a number of leadership roles, haven't you,
Yes,
in
yes,
organizations?
quite a few, quite a few. Yeah. And so I've not only owned my own business, but I've been the vice president for professional development at Team Lewis. I was the assistant head of school for enrollment management at La Jolla Country Day School, have worked at a number of independent schools. But I think the thing that I've found is that, particularly post pandemic, we need to be back in fellowship with one another. And the beauty of the leadership in residence model is that you bring me in for, say, 3 months. It's not the same type of investment as hiring someone that is then part of your team that's expensive, that they're there forever, whether it works out or not. This is a way to almost do kind of a micro embedding of having someone that can really step in and help with whatever is top of mind at the moment. And I think what's really powerful about this too is that if you have a more junior team, sometimes just having someone, or if someone is, say, a new head of school or a new in their role, having someone there that can really partner with them confidentially, providing one on one coaching, all of that is valuable.
And why does this model work across schools, non-profits, and corporations?
Yeah, largely because, frankly, the human challenges of leadership are universal, that really you're the same core issues, whether it's alignment, trust, frankly, fatigue on the part of leadership, making sure that you can meet your KPIs, all of these things are universal. And so this really, it focuses on people and on systems and on story in terms of leadership in residence. That's really, those are the three levers that matter: people, systems, and story. And so that's really why it's effective.
And why 3 months?
Yeah. 3 months is long enough to really build trust and to see patterns where I can help move the needle. We can test ideas, and if they fail, we can recalibrate. If they're successful, we can continue that. But then what it also allows for is more urgency. When you have someone for 3 months, it's not sort of the manana thing. You're going to get it done. And so it's really a chance to sort of create these systems without creating a dependency. It's giving someone the framework. So I'm not saying that you must do it this way, but you're letting them sort of iterate and find their path, and you're doing it in concert with them.
And why well, how is this different from traditional consultancy?
Well, traditional consulting really delivers answers, and I'm really trying to build capacity. I want people to really, if they've found that, for instance, let's say they struggle with having difficult conversations, getting them uh, tuned into Susan Scott's book that would help them with how do you handle difficult conversations, talking with them, rehearsing with them, helping them feel more able so that I was thinking of this analogy earlier today. It's almost like being on an airplane that's taking off, right? If you're a new pilot, my guess is you're probably a little nervous and jittery. If you knew you had a more veteran person right by your side for that takeoff, once you're in the air, you're probably in good shape. But it's that some of that initial ramp up where it really becomes helpful. And so yeah, I'm incredibly proud of the work that I did at the University of San Diego. I trained to become an executive coach, and the woman who was my mentor coach, she used to say, "Well, Inez, you're a recovering consultant," and I laughed with that because ultimately, from my perspective, I think that I'm reminded of Robert Burns. Robert Burns used to say, "Oh, would I had the gift God gave us to see ourselves as others see us." Having that period of having that opportunity for this leadership in residence embedding process really can be a game changer.
And what problem does leadership in residence solve?
I think it solves the gaps that can occur between knowing and doing. I mean, we can know all day long that this needs to change, but how do you make it change? And sometimes you do have to test things out. So again, having someone who's knowledgeable, can think innovatively with you, can be really a value add. And I think the other piece, the other problem it solves, I think we're living in a time where when you hire a senior leader, if you are not being mindful of how that leader is showing up, you can shoot yourself in the foot. I think that people can present great in interviews and all of this, but then in real life it becomes very challenging. And often one of the most important things about leadership in residence is doing kind of an initial audit and doing a lot of listening and then going from there. Because if you fail to speak with all the constituencies in your workplace, you're probably not going to get some of the changes or the outcomes that you're looking for.
So why you? What do you uniquely bring to the model?
Yeah, I think what I will say is that I have been fortunate in that I've worked in numerous settings with really challenging constituencies. So I think back specifically to the time when I was doing a lot of training for law enforcement for the state of California. And I was working with folks who were sheriffs and chiefs of police and law enforcement professionals and district attorneys. And I think about the fact that every culture has its language, its vocabulary, etc. And I am someone, because of the work that I did, I would have subject matter expert meetings where I would bring people together, and I very quickly had to come up to speed on what the issue was in order to then create training that would address that. And I think that that skill set has stayed with me and allowed me to really go in to hear from the person what the problem is, but then I think I have a unique ability to see under the surface. Also, wait a minute, Tim, I'm a lot of fun. I you know, I mean, I like to enjoy the ride, not just get to the destination. And I think that if you can be in a setting where you have someone that has a sense of humor, that can be warm, can be relational, but also really understands the importance of data, of getting what are the KPIs? How are we going to meet the mark that's been set? All of those things, all of that alchemy is so important. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
What's the biggest misconception about leadership today?
I think the biggest misconception about leadership is that it's all about certainty and control, when in fact,
I'm being serious.
uh, well, right, right, and this sort of um, bravado, right? Whereas I think real leadership is truly about discernment and humility and relational courage and really being okay with the fact that things can be complex and ambiguous and our words matter. Real leaders use their words strategically and ideally to uplift and to edify.
Um, what kind of transformation can organizations expect
Right, from the leadership in
from the
residence
leadership in residence? Yeah.
model, right. I mean, ultimately, it's, I think, greater clarity, stronger alignment, healthier communication. I think leaders, fundamentally, one of the realities of being the CEO, of being the head of school, when you are the boss, it's lonely.
Hmm.
And when I say lonely, it's lonely as in you have to manage so many things, and having someone that can be a confidential thought partner to really talk and walk it through is critical. Adam Gray made the observation that in Japan, many senior leaders are kept on simply so that they can be, even after retirement, they're present so that they can be sharing their wisdom. This is a tweak on that idea.
So, how do you build trust so quickly inside a new community?
I think you build trust by doing a lot of listening before you speak. I think that the first thing that I do is always an audit, and what a listening audit. And what I mean by that is having the opportunity to really hear from stakeholders and really hear what is it that is from different people's lens. What's the concern? And I believe I'm someone who tries to tell the truth, but I try to tell it kindly. I try to do it in a way that preserves dignity. And I think that trust accelerates when people feel understood and not judged.
Hmm. What does it mean to embed with a leadership team, and what does that look like day to
So
day?
yeah, so I think one of the things that's challenging with this model, I mean, obviously I will sign NDAs and do that kind of thing, but ultimately I need to be in those key meetings. I need to be able to really have confidential one-on-one conversations, also understanding that ultimately if there is a problem or a concern, it's got to be able to be out in the light, so to speak. That being embedded, I'm observing the dynamics and I'm looking at the data and I'm available in real time. So there's nothing like taking a colleague for a cup of coffee or going, wow, let's go take a walk. It's a beautiful day, and having the opportunity to really be human with one another, because again, it's just it's so crucial to be present for the decisions that as they unfold, not just after the fact. So being embedded means I'm there long enough that I can see if we've made a decision and it ends up not being the way we had hoped it would resolve. How can we then address it differently?
And how do you integrate both data and human connection when making leadership recommendations?
Right. Well, data is telling us what is happening, and people tell us why it's happening. And so it's really that kind of marriage. I mean, as an example, I'll use admissions as an example of school, independent school admissions or school admissions. You look at the data, you look at enrollment trends, you look at retention data, you look at metrics. You're trying to really see what are the financial indicators with that you need to be cognizant of. But then ultimately you want to make sure that things are both analytically sound and then, realistic in terms of the human lived experience. So it's that marriage. I mean, because data alone isn't going to tell the whole story. And then, having an opinion about something is lovely, but it's got to be ideally supported.
So you've got a background in communication as well as documentary filmmaking, haven't you?
Right, right.
So how does that and storytelling shape your leadership approach?
Right. So I'm really fortunate. I earned my master's degree in communications from Stanford, but I have an undergraduate degree from the University of New Hampshire in business administration. And so I really think that marriage of um academic background with my lived experience is so valuable. And truly, story reveals truth in a lot of ways. And ultimately, I've been fortunate in that I can really help people see what are the patterns, what are the reoccurring themes, why are things not moving, what is stuck here. And so I think, again, organizations move forward when they understand the story that they're telling and the one that they're living.
And what are the biggest pain points when you see among other senior leaders today, and
Yeah,
how does the residency address them?
absolutely. I think isolation is a pain point. I think cognitive or information overload is a huge pain point. I think there's a lot of emotional fatigue where people, we've had rampant layoffs, throughout the United States, certainly. And so, again, it's people who are in the workplace are being asked to perform, and it's potential. It's really harder than ever in a lot of ways. That some of the traditional levers that people have pulled aren't they're just not working anymore, and so people need to be ready to innovate. And so with leadership in residence, I really feel that I'm able to bring in this and create the space for the thinking, the reflection, the recalibration that needs to happen kind of without the stigma. I mean, again, the when you take a risk, people, you know sort of hold their breath, right? But with leadership in residence, the risk is not the risk of hiring, someone for $300,000 a year and benefits and et cetera. It's a short term, 3 month way to get that leader in to help and go from there.
So how do you support a head of school, an executive director, or a CEO as that confidential thought partner?
Sure. Discretion, perspective, um, really having someone that you can take the journey with. I mean, as again, part of my background is that I had to learn and become expert in things very quickly
Mm.
from the expertise that other people shared. So being able to, um, if I'm working with someone, for instance, of a woman that I work with up in the Bay Area who's in the pharmaceutical industry, I, am I an expert in pharmaceuticals? Not at all. But the challenges that she's facing of project management, of compliance, of deadlines, all of those things, I understand completely. And so, oftentimes, what you find is that it really just comes down to really helping them with management skills, and frankly, they end up being people management skills, and that's my forte.
So how do you measure outcomes in terms of the 3 month residency?
Yeah. I'm very careful with anyone that I'm working with to almost start with the question, not only where do they believe they are, but where do they want to
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
really. And that's the metric that ultimately the organization that I'm working with dictates what success will look like, and that becomes my KPI in terms of where I'm going to take the organization. And again, there are less tangible things like seemingly improved communication, that there's greater alignment, et cetera. But sometimes, and that's the beauty of leadership in residence is, how does it feel? How are people, do they seem more relaxed? Do they seem more confident? Are they happier? I mean, what a concept, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, does it, how, is the vibe good,
Mm.
right? So, yeah.
So, Inez Robinson-Odom, thank you so much for coming on and talking about leadership in residence. If people wanted to find out more information, where can they get information on you?
Just hit me up, inezodom.com, or you can, as I said, I'm on Instagram with Miss Inez's School of Home Training, or go on to LinkedIn. Please go on to LinkedIn and message me, and I promise to respond.